Well, I'm back. This is Francesca, and I am here with Mr. Samurai, and today we are going to talk about the
1980s.
What?
The 1980s.
1980s, yes. Hi, Mr. Samurai. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Francesca.
Always good to interview with you. Okay. What would you like to talk about regarding the 80s? The fads, maybe?
Of course.
Well, there was a lot of really interesting fads in the 80s, that's for sure. Do you have a favorite band, like singer or music band from the 80s?
None that I can think of.
Well, there sure were a lot to choose from. Probably one of the biggest performers was Michael Jackson. He was really popular in the 1980s.
Oh, Michael Jackson, I've heard of him. He died, did he not?
Yes, he did. He passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately. But he did quite an amazing, had a quite amazing run with all of his videos and concerts and tours, and he even made a movie, Moonwalker. And I'm trying to think what else I can remember him doing. But he was definitely very popular for a while there. There was also a lot of the new wave bands. Lots and lots of new wave bands. They were British, a lot of them. Then after a while they really weren't. A couple of them pretended to be British. Lots of really weird hairdos. Have you seen some of the hairdos from the bands of the 80s?
Well, hair like this?
Some people did. Some people did. Not quite as radical as yours, Mr. Samurai. And then, I'm trying to think of some other things that were from the 80s. Oh, how could I forget the big hair? All the metal bands are like, whatever they were more like, there's a word I could say for it, but I'm not going to. They weren't really, I don't know. Anyway, we called them hair bands because they had big hair, and they used a lot of hairspray, and they wore a lot of makeup, and they played songs, and usually they had ripped up clothes with, what do I want to call them? The laser, oh my gosh, no, not laser. With the animal print pants that were ripped too. And they would do a lot of kicks in their videos. Does that sound familiar?
Something like that,
yeah.
I think.
What about the 80s is special to you? Is there anything special?
Have you watched any shows in the 1980s before?
Oh yeah. What? Do you have a favorite?
That seems to be a tough question.
Was there any Saturday morning cartoons that you might have liked?
Saturday morning cartoons? Like what?
I kind of liked Mighty Mouse.
Mighty Mouse, that's pretty old.
It is pretty old, and it was one of the first cartoons I think that had a little bit of a controversial edge to it, and at least, well, I won't say it was one of the first, but definitely one of the first Saturday morning ones. But there was also Pee Wee Herman.
Oh,
his show was funny. Tell me about Pee Wee Herman. Did you ever see a show? What you thought of it?
Pee Wee's Playhouse, you mean?
Yeah. How does he laugh? Oh my!
That's how he laughs, right?
That's exactly how he laughs, Mr. Samurai. So did you like that show? Did you ever watch it? Do samurais have TVs?
I think that was my other counterpart that watched that show.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't know if samurais had TVs or not. Sometimes?
Sometimes.
Do they have video games?
Video games?
Yeah.
You know, back in the 1980s, they used to have an NES. That's an 8-bit console.
Yes, I know. It was very pixelated looking, wasn't it? Wasn't Mario just kind of a blob with a mustache or something?
A blob?
He kind of looked like a blob, like a pixelated blob. And you know what kind of computer was really popular?
What?
The Commodore.
The Commodore?
And do you know anything about the Commodore?
The Commodore's pretty old.
It's a fossil.
A fossilized computer.
Yes. It's a fossilized computer. I think the only thing one of those would be good for nowadays is a paperweight. So computers have gotten so thin and so easy to use and are so nice now that it's hard to think of a gigantic computer that takes you 45 minutes to log into, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think of computers? Do you think that modern technology is a good thing?
Of course.
So you like it?
Well, it is 2012.
Yes, it is. It is 2012. Do you think the world's going to end on the solstice this year, Mr. Samurai?
I can't be certain.
I think we're good. I think it's going to be fine. How about you? Really?
Really?
You really think it's... Because you don't think it's going to happen, do you?
No.
I don't either.
2012 being the end is just a fake.
I think so, too. I think that's just a lot of crazy preachers and crazy people that think that anyway. So, yeah. What was that, madam?
I said the Mayans.
Oh, and the Mayans, yep.
Not any creatures.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, there's been a few predictions. Hasn't the world been supposed to end?
Well, actually,
That's what she thinks.
because leap years do not exist when the Mayans said that, I'm pretty sure we're like 7 months, like, it was supposed to happen like 7 months ago, according to the Mayans, because we have leap years. Something like that.
Fun stuff. And with my advanced math skills, you know that I'm processing that really well.
That's okay, because accountants are poor anyways, according to Dad.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Mr. Samurai, so getting back to you, have you ever seen a guy called Max Headroom?
What's Max Headroom?
He was this really weird guy in the 80s, and he was computerized, and they would do these really weird commercials, and he did Diet Coke commercials. Does that sound familiar?
Well, yes.
They were creepy.
Of course, Max Headroom is creepy.
He is creepy. You know who else was popular in the 80s? As Michael Jordan. He was a basketball, well, he still is, a basketball player that was really talented. And you know what else made a comeback in the 80s that was really popular?
What?
The Looney Tunes.
Ah, Looney Tunes.
Yeah, I think Mel Blanc, the guy that did all the voices for the Looney Tunes, died in the 80s. I think he was in his 80s. And he did a lot of really funny voices. Do you have a favorite Looney Tunes character, Mr. Samurai?
I don't know. Do you?
I always kind of like Daffy Duck, but my favorite, without a doubt, is Foghorn Leghorn. He's just so funny. And Pepe Le Pew is pretty awesome, too. I always feel so sorry for the cat that he's chasing. Right?
Right.
Who's your favorite Looney Tunes character, Mr. Samurai?
The
Martian?
Can't seem to recall.
Because you sounded like the Martian.
What? Martian?
Remember the Martian?
Oh, the Martian.
Yeah. Yeah. And Daffy Duck was kind of funny because he was all like flop, 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 flop. So he was kind of funny too. But yeah, my very favorite was Pepe Le Pew and Foghorn Leghorn. They were the funniest.
Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, there you go. How about the weasel?
Weasel?
Remember the weasel that would always try to munch on Foghorn Leghorn's leg?
As if it were a drumstick?
Yes.
Well, let's see. Can't seem to recall.
Okay. Well, there's always a silly weasel that would always be dancing around Foghorn Leghorn's leg, going maybe going circling it. So, and oh, how could I forget Wile Coyote? He was funny, and I hated the Roadrunner. I wanted him to eat the Roadrunner and kill him and destroy him because the Roadrunner was irritating.
Yeah, that sounds evil.
World domination for Wile Coyote. I liked Wile. He was funny. I always like when he'd be falling and these huge boulders will be getting ready to fall on top of him and he'd put the little teeny tiny umbrella up. Those were fun. Does that sound familiar?
Of course. I think my counterpart's seen stuff like that before.
Oh, okay. So what other, tell me some 80s things like Rubik's Cube. Have you ever played with a Rubik's Cube, Mr. Samurai?
Well, have you played with the Rubik's Cube, Francesca?
For many hours, and I have yet to figure that darn thing out.
Oh, well, I have no idea.
They're very tricky. I hate when you see some genius on TV and it's like, I can do this in 7 seconds. And I'm like, I'm so happy for you. Go away. Mr. Samurai, you've got to do your maniacal laugh for us. Are you ready?
Maniacal laugh? I'm not a villain.
No, you're not a villain, so you don't do a maniacal laugh. But you do have a funny laugh. So, can you do your laugh for us?
Okay.
Do it again. That's awesome. Okay. I'm sorry. Oh, I've got laughinitis. I don't want laughinitis. Have you ever had laughinitis, Mr. Samurai?
Have I?
Yeah. It's when you can't stop laughing and it actually starts to hurt.
Oh boy.
It happened to me before a few times.
Laughing does hurt you.
It can. It can get painful if you can't stop. So, anyway, I'm going to swirl around here and get a nice costume. Oh, that's my knee. You can see that I've been doing a lot of tanning this summer. Yeah. No, it's not really my cup of tea. So, what else do you remember, or what do you think of when you think of the 80s? Do you remember Madonna?
Madonna? Who's Madonna?
Well... When I think of her, I think of germs. I'll leave it at that. But she is a very popular singer from the 80s, 90s, 2000s. Like, she never goes away. It's like...
How old is she now?
Oh, God. She's a fossil. And she looks just as disgusting now as she did then. But, you know, everybody thought she was so wonderful. I never quite understood it. I've never really was that much of a fan, but a lot of people like her and still do. But I'm trying to think of who I liked in the 80s. I went through a phase where I liked Prince. I'm so embarrassed to say that.
Who's Prince?
Well, Prince. All I can tell you is look up a video and watch it. And then bathe, because you'll need to. It's kind of gross. Anyway, who else? Oh, Duran Duran. I had a big crush on all the guys in Duran Duran, which, and I mean this in the nicest possible way. I don't know. I get the impression that they might not. I don't know. Were they married? They don't seem like they would. How do I put this without being? I'm not being prejudiced or anything. I just don't think they were really that into girls. That's all. So, and I mean that in the nicest way. But I actually was a huge fan of theirs. I really liked them a lot.
Okay.
So, I don't know though. Maybe they're all married. So, and either way, it's no big deal.
Are they married? Have you seen stuff on the internet?
I don't know. I don't have any idea about their personal lives. I just remember I thought they were all very cute. So, was there a girl from the 80s that you thought was pretty, Mr. Samurai?
A girl from the 1980s?
Yeah.
Can't seem to recall.
Yeah. Personally, I don't think there were very many that came out of the 80s that were very pretty. So, I could understand where you're coming from. Let's see, I'm trying to think a little bit more about some of the things that were popular in the 80s. There was a fad where where Coca-Cola decided to change their formula, and they changed their formula to New Coke, and no one liked it. So then they changed their Coke back to Coke. They had New Coke and Coca-Cola Classic. What do you think about that? And now Coca-Cola Classic is the regular Coke. Does that make any sense?
Caffeinated.
Oh, but it is. Actually, it doesn't really caffeinate me that much when I drink it, unless it's a big portion. How about you? Does it make you really jittery if you drink Coke?
I don't know. Do samurais drink Coke?
I think they could if they wanted to. What do you think?
Oh, gee, I don't know.
In your case, you might want to sip through a straw, though.
Sip through a straw?
Yeah, because of your mask. It could be kind of interesting if you don't. Could
Yeah,
get
I
a little
can't eat
messy.
this mask on.
No, I would imagine that you can't. Well, I'll tell you a show that I used to watch in the 80s, and it was weird and violent, kind of campy, and really, really popular. Miami Vice. Have you ever heard of it?
Miami Vice? What's
Yeah.
that?
Miami Vice was a cop show. There was 2 cops in Florida, and I had a crush on Don Johnson. I'm sorry.
Who's Don Johnson?
I'm just going to apologize to the universe right now. Don Johnson was a performer. He was an actor in the 80s that was really popular.
Was he American?
Oh, yes. And he wore these pastel color clothes. They were kind of like, he wore these like cottony white pants and a little white, what do you call it, blazer with usually a pastel colored t-shirt under it. And he wore shoes with no socks. And he slicked his hair back. And it was kind of spiky. And he was very tan. And I thought he was very handsome at the time. And so did the rest of America.
Mm-hmm.
So, I gotta tell you, for all the weird stuff that was in the 80s, I actually like a lot of stuff that's around nowadays much better. What do you think?
Yeah, there are some weird stuff in the 80s. Even in the past.
Well, what do you think was weird in the 80s? Anything special?
Can't seem to think about it.
I'll tell you who else got popular at the end of the 80s was Paula Abdul. She was a real pretty, I think she still is, performer. You know who she is, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She was pretty, and I think still is. I'm a fan. Trying to think of anything else. That's just all the pop culture stuff, because that's the stuff I remember. Because I was kind of the age that I was the target audience of all that. I can't really think of much else about it. I mean, there was a lot of other things that went on in the 80s. So, Ronald Reagan was the president.
Mm-hmm.
And then his vice president was George Bush Sr. And then George Bush Sr. became president.
Okay.
Yep. So that was part of the 80s. And lots of other stuff, but I spent a long day in the garden and my brain is blanking out. So you got to help me here, Mr. Samurai.
All right.
So you said you liked Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yes.
You thought it was a cool show. Pretty
the
funny.
secret word.
The secret word. What was the secret word? Was it samurai?
No, I don't think that was the secret word.
Well, today is it a secret word? Let's make it the secret word today. Okay. That means you are a samurai.
Yay!
So whenever I say the secret word,
you scream
real
loud.
loud. Okay. Well, we're actually coming up on the end of the interview almost, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
And, Mr. Samurai. Mr. Samurai. I just want to tell you that I think you're really awesome. It's been really fun interviewing you.
Yeah.
And you're a pretty cool guy, Mr. Samurai. Okay. All right. Well, I just want to thank you so much for coming in. And you have a wonderful day, Mr. Samurai.
Yeah.